Hello everyone. I hope that you all are doing well. Today we are going to start with a React query, but before that, let's revise what we learned in a previous session. Okay, so in previous session we saw one project which is based on a React router demo, and we created one website, and there are some components we created, and we are just visiting them, okay, by means of a router. Okay, so for the routing purpose we installed route and we imported it. Okay, so basically uh, we just make use changes in our main.jsx, okay, where we have to define, okay, what exactly the routes are there. Okay, and we installed the React router DOM, okay, package in our application. Then who is responsible? The route provider is responsible, and the router, this particular router is responsible for linking related path with the element. Okay, so it says that if path is slash, go to the layout. If path is empty, go to the home. Its path is about slash about, go to the about component. If path is contact, go to the contact component. If path is user with its user ID, go to the user component. And if path is API call, then load the API first by means of this API loader function, and then you can load the API call component. Okay, so all these things where we used it inside the header. Okay, header contains our navigation bar. So this slash contact slash API is, we applied this link to the related buttons or related navigation words. Okay, so API call, when we click on API call, it will find out the path slash API call. So where we register this path is registered in our main.jsx and inside our router. So it's find out, okay, where is that slash user or slash contact. So it find out, okay, here is the slash, which is the parental component, and these are the child. So slash contact, it means here it is match found, and it will load the contact element like this. Okay. So as far as we completed the routing techniques, now we already aware about how to fetch the APIs by using Axios and by using Fetch API. Also, we understood that how to handle these API calls, okay, properly by, if the data is loading, we showed that, okay, it's loading. If it is uh, 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 giving you some kind of a error, so we displayed that particular error. We saw one example about it. Now, these things, rather than writing in a code, we can handle by means of a React query. Okay, so today we are going to start all about React query. So what exactly the React query is and how we are going to deal with it, let's understand this thing. Okay, so let's go ahead with the website of a React query. So powerful asynchronous state management for TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Solid, Vue, Servlet, and Angular. Okay. So basically, this query is applicable for all the asynchronous state management techniques in all these frameworks. Okay. So that's why instead of calling it as a simply React query, we are calling it as a TAN stack query. So obviously the description, it says that, okay, toss out that the granular state management, okay, how we are managing state by means of a use state, by means of a use reducers, then there is a redux, lots of different facilities we use to manage the state, right? And we are just granular, it means we are just small ways we are handling the state. Okay, so manual refetching and endless bowls of async spaghetti code. Okay, so we have written lots of async and await code. Okay, so and we handled it. Okay, what happened? Okay, taking time. What we should do? Display the loading. Okay, so it's not fetching the required data or some something went wrong, we are unable to call the API, display the error. So these things we are just, again, after some time we have to refetch the particular data. We want the update data. So we are manually doing these things, okay? So timestamp stays that, okay, timestamp query gives you the declarative, always up to date, auto managed queries and mutations that directly improve both, obviously, developers, your work will get reduced, and the user experience, because user is receiving the more appropriate data, and which is very quick. Okay, so this is all about the timestamp query, but let's discuss what we have done previously and what we are doing right now. Okay, so previously, how we normally access the backend or any API, we just went to the React app. We just use the fetch API or XMLs, or any kind of third-party library like Axios, okay, and we make a call from React app to the backend. Backend says, okay, fine, I will give you the response. But in this situation, we have to write a separate code for loading, error handling, caching, refetching. We have to handle the server side state and all these things. So these things we have to do manually. So better solution, obviously it's a third party library, but it reduce the burden, it reduce the all complexity very well, okay? So that's why the React query is so much powerful, okay? So React query is a powerful tool for managing server state in your React applications. It's abstract the complexity of a data, okay? Abstract, it means it gives you the result, and then you don't need to understand what exactly the behind the scenes happening, right? So you want to fetch it, fine, you want to cache it, fine, you want to synchronize it, fine, okay? So all these features are available on a one function call in a React query, and which allows you to focus on building your own UI, correct? So rather than calling it like this, how we normally call, we normally call the backend now by means of a React query. Now, what exactly, how exactly it happens? So React app calls the React query communicate with the backend gives the responses and data to the React query handle all the required situations, all the required possibilities, and then it sent back that data to your React app. So React query is made up of all different features and components. Okay, most the main or the key feature is nothing but a query client. Okay, query client, query provider, and then there is a use query hook. Okay, and by means of which we able to access the data. So this is the in short abstract view of a React query. Let's go ahead. What are the features provided by the React query and why it is popular and why we have to use it? Okay, so let's go ahead with our slides. So all these things are normally the snippet. What are the diagrams we have already seen? Now the React query client, React query is nothing but a JavaScript library that provides a powerful and flexible way to manage the asynchronous data in a React application. It only simplifies the process of fetching, caching, updating data by providing declarative and automative APIs. So APIs are available, you just need to the features are available, you just need to call them, and you just need to decide what features you want as per your requirement. Okay, so what are the different facilities provided by the React query? Okay, so loading state, error state handled, managed. You don't need to make it, okay, loading is equal to true and loading is equal to true initially, and then it's get loaded, then we are manually doing loading is equal to false, right? Error is equal to true before we are calling the API, sorry, false before we are calling the API, and something happens, then in a promises we are deciding, okay, where the error is, right? And accordingly we are displaying the div for the loading and div for the error, right? So these things you don't need to do. There is only is loading and is error. Attribute is there, object is there, you just need to use it and you will get that particular value. You don't need to create your own variables. cache invalidation, data mutations. Okay, so consider you are loading the page, okay, in a certain amount of time. Also, all the time there is no necessary to make a call to the API. Okay, so there are some requirements. Okay, once the data has been get loaded, so let it be whenever you want that data within a certain amount of time, it is available. Use that cached data. You don't need to hit the API and fetch the data again and again. So there are certain limits where your data cached and stored, and whenever you want it, that cached data will get uh, provided to you. Okay, pagination, automatic pagination, we can do it. Again, it's so simple. Infinite scrolling, it means you are scrolling and you're able to see more videos or more pictures. So you just click on it and there is an infinite scrolling available. Pagination, you're aware about the next page, previous page. So that thing also we can easily do by means of a React query. Then retry on a error. So there are the facilities in a React query that consider your application is giving you the error. Okay. And obviously what we normally do whenever we receive error as a response, we redirect, we just retry it, we refresh that particular page, right? So automatic retry on the error is available 3 times. It allows you to refresh your page, and after 3 times it allows you to define particular message. So you are refreshing your website 3 times or whatever the times you want, and after that it will give you the suggestion. Okay, fine, there is no issue. So there is a problem. Okay, it still doesn't give you any kind of a response, correct response. So retry, data caching, then deduplication. So consider there are 3 or 4 components are there which require more, same kind of a data. Everyone wants the data of a post, correct? So it's not correct way to fetch the post API again and again 3 times for the 3 separate components. So you just duplicate it, you just make a one time you have to fetch the data, and that same data you can access or share with the multiple components. So next, what is available? Prefetching. Okay, so you are not using that particular data, but prefetching is available. Background data synchronization. So whenever the data updated at the server side, that data get reflected. Server side rendering support is there. State management, we are rarely using use state and use effect kinds of a hook in a React query. So state management automatically done by the React query. So these are the some features which are very good and which improves your functionality, productivity of your application, and which is supported by React query. So that's why it is highly recommended to understand the React query properly. Now we will see some practical concepts about. So to understand React query, obviously in our example, there should be backend as well as there should be the React app, right? So backend will provide us the kind of API or data we want. So already I have created one backend which is available. And in a React app, what we will do, we will just first import, or we will just install the React query first, and then we can go ahead with, we will create the object of a query client. Okay, we have to import it. Then we have to create one tag, which is the query client provider. Query client provider will tells us, okay, how the client will get executed. So these are the 2 things for the registration purpose. Now, after registration, how we are going to use or how we are going to fire the query. So for that, there is a use query hook is available. So we will see this example, but before that, let's start with our um, documentation, and there is an option to for the installation purpose. Okay, so just a minute. Yeah, here it is. So now here you can see there is an option like getting started and installation tab. In the installation tab, what you will do, in which project you want to use the React query, just copy this npm install Tangstand query. So when you fire this here, okay, in your application. So this is my application which we are going to work on. Already what I have created, I created one folder. In that folder, there is a backend. Okay, so obviously there are some fetch requests are there. Okay, API is there and there is some data. Okay, so we are putting some data over here. So data is available. To fetch this data, we have our own backend server created. And what I have done, I have started it. Okay. So for example, first of all, what I have done, I just created it and I have executed, run this. Okay. So my server is running on a local host 3000. And what it gives me this particular data. Okay, JSON data. So how I have done it? So first of all, um, yeah, here it is. So I have installed the Tanstang. Okay, after that, uh, in npm install. Okay, and next, what I have done, npm JSON server, JSON server dot JSON. Okay, JSON server dot data dot JSON. Okay, so where is my file? So we have to start it this particular API, right? So we have the data which is available here. So how to execute this API? So for that we have to just mention that npx JSON server, start the JSON server for which API, for which data, go to the SRC, go to the API, and then there is a data.json is available. For that, you need to start it. Okay, let me just drag it a little bit here so you can see it. So npx JSON server, and then this particular JSON I want to start. Okay. Next, after that, what I have done, there are some issues with the data, and then obviously I have removed that particular data, and then data has been clear, and then my server gets started properly on a particular post. Okay, what is the port? There is HTTP localhost 300. Okay, now my server is up. So if I want to fire any query on my server, if I want to fetch the API, so it is available. We can fetch. Okay, so this is my server. Now next, what I have done first, what we need to do in our diagram, if you see that, okay, React query, we installed it. Then we want the backend. We created the backend. So here is my backend under the API, and uh, I have installed the Tank query also. Now, how to use it? So for that, what we have done, we went to the main.jsx. So I want to use the query. So that's why I want to use what are the two different components I want to use, query client and query client provider. So I have imported it. Okay. Now here, like we have the route provider. Do you remember route provider we have created here? Just a minute. Where we created it in a main.jsx, right? So here also in this main.jsx, what we created? We created route provider. Similarly, if we want to provide the query in this main.jsx, what we are using? Query client provider. The way we have provided the router to the router provider, similarly here we are providing client. Okay, who is the client? Who is responsible to fetch the query? And that is nothing but our query client. So we created one query client and we are assigning new query client to it. Now, what exactly we are going to do? Here, by writing this particular statement and this particular statement, what we are doing, we are registering our query client or Tank query with our application. Okay, we are saying that whatever there inside the app, this particular thing, query client facilities will be available to the app. Okay, now we are making it available. Now how to use it? So for that we have to go to the app.jsx, and inside the app.jsx, what how we are going to do? There is a one more uh, hook we understood before, like use query. Okay, now this use query hook is responsible. Okay, so this is my use query hook. So use query hook returns, use query hooks takes one parameter. Okay, there are lots of parameters, but currently I have used two parameters. First one is the query key. What is the key or name or identification for this particular query, which is nothing but a post? And which one is the query function? Okay, so we are firing the query, but which query we are firing? For that we have written a separate function, okay, here inside the API in a api.js. So there are multiple functions I have created: fetch post, then there is a fetch tags, then there is a add post. So these are the three functions we have created, and we are exporting it. Okay, we are making it available for the this particular project. Okay, so that particular function I am accessing where inside the this use query. Okay, so my query name is post, my query function is fetch post. Now, what exactly this value, this particular query? So I am telling my query name is post and I want to fire the fetch post query. Now, this particular query will return something us, right? What it will return? First, it will return the data. Okay, we are firing the fetch API, which is the get query, and we want some data from that particular API. So obviously, one of the return type, one of the response is nothing but a data. Correct. Now, next one is loading. Okay, what is the status? Whether it's loading or what? I have mentioned before also, right? So we created one application where we are maintaining all these variables separately. We are assigning the initial value, then we are changing the value as per the use effect who get executed, and some error comes on some fetch API related status code, and all these things we handled manually. But here in the use query, it will return all these value by default, or we are getting it. Okay, so is loading, is error, error, status. So we are just simply fetching all this data and we are printing it over here. Okay, so if you can observe here, let me refresh it. So initially the data is undefined, then loading is true. Next one, what error is false. Is error is false. Error, obviously there is no error, so there is null. Status is pending. Okay, next after loading, what exactly? This is the data first. Now what is the next one? Loading false. Next one is nothing but is error false. There is no error, so there is will be the no error, that's why there is a null, and our status is success. So like this you will get n number of features. Okay, when you are using use query hook, what are they? Data, data updated at, error, failure count, reason, fetch status, is error, loading error, is pause, is pending. So all these values we will get when we use the query. Now in a use query, we only use these two attributes. Okay, query key and query function. Now, rather than this, what we are going to do, we are going to access all these features, okay, and which are really, really useful. Okay, so what is the GC type? Enabled, network mode, meta, then there are some retry. Okay, how many times you have to retry, select, stale time. Okay, how many times it should be stale, and then there's structural sharing, throw on error. So everything is mentioned. Okay, two options. What are the options? Query key is a required function. Query function is a required one. Remaining things are optional. Now, if you want to go ahead, you can go ahead. So enabled is nothing but a boolean. Network mode, online, always, or offline. How exactly you want it. Then all the things you can go at GC time. Okay, so default is 5 minutes. Okay, the time in a milliseconds, and that unused inactive cache remains in a memory. So this much time, that particular cache data will be remains in a memory. When queries cache become unused or inactive, that cache data will be garbage collected. So if it is unused and there is no use of that cached value, that we have to release that memory, right? So that is nothing but a GC time. Next, lots of options are there. I just suggest you to go ahead with this documentation, okay, of use query. So status is nothing but a pending, error, success. So we already seen this status, no, pending, success. Error is, wait, where we are. So error is something wrong happens, then obviously error will come. So is loading, is success. So all the values and functions you can use with this particular thing. Now what we are going to do, now we will understand what exactly the various features provided by the Tank. Okay, so there are lots of features and lots of hooks are there. Okay, use mutation, use is fetching, use is mutation, lots of things are there. Query cache, mutation cache. Okay, so these are related to the React. Okay, so all these hooks are the React hooks. Okay, so you can go ahead and you can, we will just visit and we will like understand some of them. So again, there are guides and concepts, queries, what exactly the query key, query function, query option, mutation. Okay, mutation we will understand one by one or two examples. So these are the very good documentation already available. So if you went through it, it will be really good. Now let's understand what are the extra features provided by the Tank query. So now what I will do, I'll just delete all these things or just comment all these things, and I'll just create one new component. And okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't have any. Okay. Post list. Just a minute. So here we created the post list. Now let's write let's see. Okay, here is the post list component get created. If you want this kind of a auto written code, then you just add an extension, this ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippet. Okay, so it will make you available when you do it. Now, what we are going to do in the post list, what we need to do, we need to access the posts, right? So how we are going to do? So obviously we are using what query, React query, right? So how actually we have done it, registration already done. So in our main.jsx, the React query registration, query client and query client provider is already done. Now we have to utilize. How we normally utilize it? We normally utilize it by means of a use query hook. Okay. So let's create one const. There will be some objects get written by use query. Okay. So use query contains two things, right? What we see over here, that it should have two options. First, required attributes, required options are, first one is nothing but a key and second one is nothing but a function. So query key and query function. Okay. So let's put the query key. Query key. So query key will be the name of your query or identification. So it's a post. And next is nothing but a next option is nothing but a query function. So what we know want to do, we want to fetch the data, right? So and our fetching uh, statements or functions are available inside the API.js. So which function? Fetch post. So we will define that fetch post is nothing but our query function. So let's check fetch posts. Okay. Now, this is our normal query accessing techniques. Now, first of all, what exactly the use query will return us? First, it returns us data. Then there is a one function we want is nothing but the is loading, then is error, and I want to check what kind of a error it is. So these are the required things I want. Now, so data has been fetched. Now what we want to do, we want to display that particular data in our markup tag. So let's add one class oh, one CSS we want, class name container. I will just add this thing later on. Next, we want to check whether is loading. Then what we need to do, we need to just put one tag, paragraph tag, and it should mention that, okay, this thing is loading. Okay. Next, what we want that again is error, then it should be display the error. So let's go ahead with the error. Is error, then what I want that it should have uh, data or error. Okay, directly we will print it error. Okay. Now next what we want that, okay, we want to iterate through this particular data, and then we are going to iterate through, and we will fetch posts one by one. So let's create okay, wait a minute, let me just clear these things first. /p and then /p. Now here inside we will iterate around the data dot map. Inside it we'll write one arrow function, and in that arrow function we are going to iterate through the data. Okay, so what exactly there inside the data, let's observe that thing, so accordingly we can put it in our code. So there is a title, there is a tag, and there is an ID. Okay, so ID, tag, and title. So tags are like, okay, what kind of a title it is, it should be mentioned. So data dot map, we are going to fetch where it is. So we just create one paragraph, and it should be the D. Then D dot, first we want the title, TITLE, and okay, it should be now expression T D dot title. Then after that, we will just mention that one more thing, second P bracket, then D dot, what exactly the thing is, tags, D dot tags. Okay, now what we need to do next, let's clear this error first. Okay, so we can't put it in a paragraph. So let's put it inside one div. And now div obviously need a key. So otherwise it will give us issue with the key, and key is nothing but a D dot ID we have. Okay. So like this, instead of parameter, okay, let's see how it gets visible. So let me format the code properly. Now what we are doing, we are checking if it's loading, then it will print this thing. If it's an error, then error will get display, and we are iterating through the map, and we just trying to put the ID, title, and tag in a visible format. Okay, now whether it's get visible or not, obviously it's not, because we are not accessing this post list here inside the div. So let's access the post list, and let's try to check the output. So yeah, we got errors and got type error cannot read the properties. Why we missed something over here? Yes, we are okay. Return, return and bracket, and inside the return we will put this. And here we close this thing. Let's remove this thing and let's save it. And let's format it. So is loading is error, it force data map. We are iterating to the map and we are returning some title and tags. Let's see the output. Now it should be there. And what it's saying, same error. Okay, let me check it again. Okay, now it's showing the output as you can see. But it's all mess over here. So we need to apply some CSS over here. So let me check. I have already created, oh, CSS is there. So what I will do, I'll just add that much part to our app.css. Hmm. Control V, Control S, and we need to import it. We need to import the CSS. Okay, so let me add some CSS. Uh, let's check the output. Yeah, here it is. Okay, we able to see some messages and some tags. Okay, now we'll understand about the mutation, and then there will be there are some concepts about the React query. Okay, and so here we able to fetch, we able to apply, and we able to perform the things. Again, we will understand the pagination and mutation and some kind of a caching and all these things in the next session. Thank you.